Alors, bonsoir. Good evening, everyone. We'll start with roll call. All members of council are present, and we would like at this time to invite for councillor's declaration, Mr. Charles Armstrong. Welcome to council, Mr. Armstrong. Please proceed.
I, Charles Armstrong, having been elected to the office of councillor in the township of Russell, do solemnly promise and declare that I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or in any other improper manner. I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, and I make this solemn promise and declaration, conscientiously believing it to be true, and knowing that it is of the same force and effect as if made under oath.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Councillor Armstrong, a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I shall be brief. It's been a long journey for me to be elected council. 3 tries. Determination is what it takes. Il faut le soutien de nombreuses personnes pour être élu, et je dois les en remercier. Je tiens à remercier tout particulièrement ma femme Élise pour m'avoir donné la permission de me présenter pour la 3e fois, et pour ses encouragements constants dans toute le long de la campagne. Merci. In addition, I must thank other members of my family and the numerous individuals that have provided me financial support, advice, encouragement, going door-knocking door-to-door on hot, humid days, signposting, and all of the other support necessary to run a campaign. Thank you. Aux autres candidats à l'élection partielle, vous êtes tous excellents des futurs conseillers municipaux de la municipalité. N'oubliez pas que la détermination est ce qu'il faut. À ceux qui ont voté, merci d'avoir accompli votre devoir civique, que la plupart évitent. Vous désirez d'être fiers. Now the work begins, as we face the challenge of leading this rapidly growing municipality. The need for improved core municipal infrastructure, asset management, and the control of urban growth, official planning, that you voted for will be my primary concerns in the next 2 years. I won't let you down. Merci de m'avoir écouté. Mettons-nous au travail.
Merci beaucoup. Bienvenue, Conseiller Armstrong. It's a pleasure to have you with us on this side of the table. Look forward to working with you and helping our community develop and grow. All right, we're going to move forward. So, Councillor Armstrong, we've given you the next job. If you can just read the acknowledgement. Thank you.
We acknowledge that we are on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe and traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat, and Kainat-Kahakak peoples. We acknowledge our shared obligation to respect, honor, and sustain these lands and the natural resources contained within.
Thank you, Councillor. Attendu que le Canada est fondé sur les principes qui reconnaissent la suprématie de Dieu et la primauté du droit, prenons un moment de réflexion personnelle.
Ô Canada, terre de nos aïeux, ton front et sœur, tes fleurs car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Son espoir est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Merci beaucoup. All right, so item number 4, additions, deletions, or amendments. Councillor Armstrong.
For 18, a statement.
Thank you. So 18A, statement from Councillor Armstrong. Thank you. Anything else? Hearing, seeing none. So I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended, and this is moved by Councillor Deacon, seconded by Councillor Lauren. I'll call the vote. And passed. Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing, hearing none. Adoption of minutes, regular council minutes, September 23rd, 2024. Motion to approve the following minutes as presented. This is moved by Councillor Lalonde, seconded by Councillor Lauren. Call for the vote. Pass. Thank you. Number 8, presentations. All right, this is a good part of my job here. All right, so this evening we have an award. So good evening, everyone. Tonight is my great honor to recognize a young hero in our community. Jacob Allen, a 13-year-old from Russell, showed remarkable courage and compassion on September 29th when he learned from a concerned father that his 8-year-old son, who has autism and is nonverbal, was missing. Jacob did not hesitate. He immediately jumped on his bike and set off to help. Jacob's determination led him to find the young boy about 1.2 kilometers away at Saint Joseph Elementary School, and in a moment that genuinely exemplifies bravery beyond his years, Jacob located the boy and ensured his safety, keeping him away from the busy road until his family arrived. Jason Plant from our bylaw office brought this nomination forward to highlight Jacob's selflessness and quick thinking. His outstanding actions not only brought a lost child back safely, but also strengthened our sense of hope and unity within this amazing community. For this, we are pleased to present Jacob Allen and with this special citizen recognition. Jacob, you inspire us all, and we're incredibly proud to have you as part of our community. Thank you for your courage. So I'd just ask you to come up here, members of council, to join me to award Jacob. Oh, we're going here now. Oh, that's right. We changed. Landriot. OK, excusez-moi. On va aller par là. Alors, merci beaucoup et félicitations encore une fois. Bravo. Jacob Landriot. All right, so moving forward, we're going to number 9, delegations, petitions. We have none. Number 10, consent items. So all items listed under the consent items will be enacted by one motion. A majority vote is required for the adoption of consent items. There will be no separate discussions on these items unless a request is made prior to the time council votes on the motion that a consent item is to be separated from the motion. That separated item shall be considered immediately after. So motion that all items listed under consent items be received as presented. A, resolution to support the Stirling Rawdon's resolution. B, request for the community grants from parks. C, minutes of the Accessibility Advisory Committee, May. D, minutes of the Community Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee, June 4th. Minutes of the joint meeting of Environment and Sustainability Advisory Committee and the Parks and Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee from September 5th, 2024. F, minutes of the Township of Russell Public Library Board, June 20th, 2024. And minutes of the United Counties Prescott Russell, June 26th and August 28th, 24. So that is moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. All in favor? Passed. Thank you. We move to item 11, reports from departments and council committees. Item A, lobbying firm report CSAS FS 2024-18. Monsieur Dagenet. Through you, Monsieur Godin.
Bonsoir, chers membres du Conseil. This evening, we are pleased to welcome Global Public Affairs, a firm well known for its expertise in lobbying and government relations. As part of our effort to fund the recreation complex project without placing any additional burden on taxpayers, Council tasked the administration with exploring alternative funding options. Following this request, Global Public Affairs was identified as a strategic partner to help us achieve this goal. Global Public Affairs not only proposed to assist us in developing target presentation to clearly outline our funding requests, but also to facilitate in-person meetings with key representatives from both the federal and the provincial government. These meetings will strengthen our advocacy for funding and recreation complex, as well as for future infrastructure projects. I will now hand it over to the Global Public Affairs team, who will present their approach and the service they can offer the township to help us secure the necessary funds for our projects.
Merci, Monsieur Dagenet. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having us in. I'm joined tonight by my colleagues Rudy Demas and Curtis O'Nien, who are sitting there in the back row. My name is Phil Cartwright. I've been a member of the team at Global Public Affairs for about 17 years. I wear 2 hats at Global, so I lead our federal team here in Ottawa, which is about 25 people, and then I also lead our transportation and infrastructure practice. We have, I know that there's some materials that have been provided to you, and I'm happy to kind of go through them in detail, or I can speak sort of more high level and then answer any questions you might have for us. We, over a number of years, have worked with municipal governments across the country of all sizes on their capital plans and on securing government funding for major projects. We have a federal team here that Rudy and Curtis and I are all part of, and we would be the team that would be supporting the township for securing federal investment. The good news is that there's a particular fund, we want to keep all the options open, but there's a particular fund, the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Fund, that we think is the best option for the rec center in particular, and then we've discussed with your colleagues other projects and capital needs that the township has, which we would also certainly be able to support on. And then our team in our Toronto office, who lead all of our Ontario provincial government relations work at Queen's Park, would support kind of similarly on the provincial side. We have a pretty detailed plan that we've already put together and shared. It's, you know, important, obviously, to cover political stakeholders in all of the relevant ministers' offices, but equally important are senior officials and bureaucrats in those same departments who are actually reviewing proposals and applications. So we have a good model that we've used with others, and we have a good track record of success, which I'd be happy to talk about if you're interested, but we would very much look forward to having an opportunity to work with the township and to support this. We think there's a kind of a good opportunity federally, and then there's also a new fund that's been brought online provincially in Ontario that we know you've applied to and that we would like to help you pursue.
Thank you very much. So before we open the floor for some questions, or is that right?
Yes, if
Yeah,
that's,
okay.
if
Yeah, that's
agreeable.
great. So before we open the floor for some questions, I got a couple of quick questions for you. So we are applying for the infrastructure fund, and so can you just kind of elaborate how your services will augment that application? Because I think we're going through a process where we have a third party helping us with the application. So
Yeah.
what added value, just for council's perspective?
Of course, yeah. You know, with that particular fund in that you've mentioned, there's a finite number of dollars, like there is with sort of all government funding programs, and they will be significantly oversubscribed. We have worked with some other clients who've successfully secured funding from GICB, and it's competitive. So the government tries to ensure that there's a number of different sort of fairness aspects to the way that they roll out that funding, that there's a good regional spread across the country, larger municipalities and communities to smaller. But the fact of the matter is there are so many applications that go in. It's not just about who you know, but you need to know who to talk to about the application in order that it kind of gets brought up the pile of the many that will have been submitted. So, you know, it's an issue of engaging with the federal Minister of Infrastructure's team and then a number of other offices, but then also the senior bureaucrats within Infrastructure Canada who are actually administering the program. They tend to be very open to meeting. It's just, frankly, a lot of organizations, including municipal governments, I think, sort of put the application and the paperwork in and then sort of think that the work is done. But in order to successfully get it across the line, which is where we would be able to help and provide advice and sort of practical hands-on support in terms of securing meetings, attending meetings if that's of interest, you know, providing advice on how to message it, how to position it. That's, I think, where we can add value.
Thank you. Questions, comments, members of council? No? Nothing? Oh. Councillor Deakin.
Thank you. For the Green and Inclusive Buildings Fund, I was wondering if there is a rural track as well as a more urban track, because sometimes when we're smaller communities, we're competing with the big boys, and it can be really difficult to get eyes on our applications and our rather ambitious project that we're pursuing here.
Yeah.
So I don't recall if that was in the report or not, but just wondering if there is that distinction in that fund.
Unfortunately, not for that program.
Okay.
You're right. It is frankly easier if there is that sort of rural and remote communities carve out, but they haven't done that for that particular program. So it is kind of everybody applying together.
And I just had one more follow-up for the administration, looking at the timelines for these programs, just to verify that we are going ahead and applying to these programs. I know that the GICB, I think, closes later this week, so to make sure that we're on track for that in order to be engaging a firm that would then help us get across the line.
Monsieur Godin? Monsieur Dagenet? Ouais.
Yes, we're on track for the JCB grant. We'll be applying tomorrow. It's the deadline. And for the other, we're going to be applying. If it's not later this week, it's going to be early next week. So we're kind of doing both grants at the same time.
Just to clarify, Mr. Dagenet, we've been working hard on putting this package together. It's not just tomorrow we're applying. Let's apply tomorrow. There's a whole package that's in play here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, just wanted to confirm that.
That was
Councillor
going to,
Deegan?
thank you. That was going to be my last point, is just knowing that we're in the middle of budget period and recognizing the hard work of administration to get those applications together. I appreciate that.
Excellent, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Lauren?
Yeah, I guess whether it's through Mr. Godin, Madame Guitar, or to the consultants, are we also looking at potential accessibility inclusiveness type grants through the federal government or provincial government if they are available or become available for the
Monsieur-
recreation complex?
Yeah. Monsieur Dagenet, Monsieur Godin?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, we're looking at all the grants that have become available, so we are keeping a keen eye on all of these. And we are working with Grant Match as far as grant applications go, but they don't just prepare the applications, they do keep an eye out on all the programs that become available, and they keep us informed as well. So we are internally looking into all the programs, and we're also making sure we have the right people looking at that as well.
Okay, great. Any other, Councillor Armstrong?
It just, in terms of expectations, what is the track record of the township in getting these grants? As we've mentioned here that they're very competitive, how well do we compete in those applications?
Monsieur Godin?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so that's a great question, Councillor Armstrong. So we do get multiple grants every year. As far as our track record, we have quarterly reports where we present statistics to council on all the applications we make and the status of those and the results of those. In regards to a major grant like the ones we're applying right now, I haven't seen one since I went to townships, but I know our last one that we've received over $10 million, I think, was for when we brought the water from Ottawa. But though. And which is kind of why we're proposing this additional effort in order to try to increase our odds in getting a successful grant application here.
Councillor Lauren?
And I think that's been the call to action by residents, by council over the last few years is, because we didn't proceed with the contingency of having grants and grant applications or sponsorships to move forward with a project like the recreation complex. So having the knowledge now that we have people looking at these additional grants and sponsorships and stuff like that, and those types of programs available to us now that the project is in the ground, I think is a key component to assisting the residents with the funding and not putting all the burden on them. Although we did a financing plan, any additional money that comes in will save the taxpayer, which is what we're looking for. So I'm very happy and pleased with these types of arrangements so that we can look forward to getting some sort of a compensation or additional grants towards the project. So, good job.
Excellent
Thank you.
point, thank you. Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, one last question. Are there any types of projects that tend to get more grants from federal or provincial government to small municipalities as opposed to some of these larger ones? Regardless if we get one for the recreation complex, we know there are other expenses coming down the line. Will those be looked at more favorably perhaps than the recreation complex or any other project we've got?
Monsieur Godin?
Through Mr. Mayor, so it's difficult for me to say. I'm not sure exactly what priorities at the provincial and the federal level changed somewhat throughout the years. So it's difficult to say if there's a specific type of project or application that would be most applicable to a smaller municipality. So I don't really have more than that to say on the topic, unless Mr. Cartwright, you have any insight on that question.
Mr. Cartwright?
Maybe just some context. The current federal government has tended to prefer to flow funding, as I'm sure you know, to provinces and territories to then roll out to specifically when it comes to capital infrastructure funding, to then roll it out or prioritize projects for other orders of government. So it hasn't always been that way, but that's how they have tended to sort of organize their process for how they deliver capital funding to municipalities. So I think it really does come down to the province more than anything. The GICB that we've been talking about is one of the very few infrastructure programs currently where the Government of Canada itself picks projects versus looking to provinces and territories to prioritize projects, if that helps.
Thank you. So, so I guess we, in your plan, it was a 6-month plan. It's a little bit delayed, but so the impact of the holidays or anything has no impact. We should be able to see the same results.
Yes, I
Yeah,
think we'll be able
okay.
to stick with the timeline. we
Excellent.
had. Yeah.
So we should be expecting some meetings with federal and provincial decision makers, is what
Correct.
we're hoping
Yes,
for,
we can
right?
get going quickly.
Excellent. So I look forward to 6 months from now when we review that and say how amazing of a decision we made here tonight. So
Great.
thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anything else? No? All right. Moving to item B, indexation of development charges rates. Report CSAS FS 2024-16. Monsieur Dagenet?
Aucun commentaire.
Aucun commentaire. This is a standard thing we do twice per year, correct? And we follow the construction indexed, and so we're just doing that, correct? Okay. Any questions, comments, members of council? No? All right, item C, first draft of the 2025 budget report, CSAS FS 2024-17. This is, the report is being presented to us, and the discussions will be coming next week, right? Is it next week already, 24, 25? Yeah. Next week, so I know it's a bit of a interesting budget, and some a lot of decisions have been made going into it, preparing it, and I know that there will likely be some difficult decisions to be made through those discussions. But this report is simply to receive it. So anything to add, Monsieur Dagenet, Monsieur Godin?
No, you,
Summarized?
yeah,
Okay.
you summarize.
Okay, merci. Questions, comments, members of council on this item? Okay. Nothing. Okay. Moving to item D, OPP Municipal Policing 2025 Annual Billing Statement Package Report CSAS FS 2024-19. So everyone should have received that. Again, a surprising bump in costs for our municipality here. Anything to add to that, Monsieur Dagenet, Madame Bordeaux?
Je peux commencer. Oui, c'est ça. Fait que le vendredi 4 octobre 2024, nous avons reçu le relevé annuel de facturation 2025 de la police provinciale de l'Ontario. En même temps, nous avons reçu le rapprochement des coûts de 2023 et nous avons été informés qu'un webinaire serait organisé en octobre ou en novembre pour mettre en évidence les aspects clés des informations de cette facturation. L'administration a demandé des éclaircissements supplémentaires et estime qu'il est alarmant que des augmentations aussi importantes puissent être imposées sans communication adéquate ou stratégie d'atténuation. Nous prévoyons de participer à ce webinaire dont nous connaîtrons la date et l'heure prochainement afin de mieux comprendre les raisons de l'augmentation significative de ces frais. De nombreuses municipalités de l'Ontario sont confrontées à des augmentations similaires et ont fait part de leurs inquiétudes quant à l'impact sur leur budget. Cette augmentation représente une augmentation de 2,91 %. Cela signifie que l'augmentation proposée pour les services de l'OPP en 2025 représente près de 75 % de l'augmentation totale approuvée pour 2024. Nous trouvons très trompeur qu'une augmentation aussi substantielle soit incluse dans le budget opérationnel de la municipalité, d'autant plus que nous n'avons aucun contrôle sur ces coûts. Par conséquent, si le Conseil est d'accord, nous proposons d'explorer l'option de supprimer les frais de service de l'OPP de l'impôt de la taxation générale et de couvrir les coûts par des frais d'utilisation à la place. De plus amples détails sur la manière dont cette nouvelle approche pourrait être structurée, ainsi que son impact potentiel sur les résidents pourrait être présenté dans un prochain rapport. Merci.
Merci, M. Dagenet. Deux petites choses à souligner, peut-être. The 2.91% increase is directly on residents. The actual increase of the bill of the OPPs in the range of 24%, correct?
Yeah, 23-24%.
Okay. The other thing, too, as you mentioned, des augmentations sur le pourcentage déjà approuvé. On n'a rien approuvé encore pour le budget 2025.
Moi, j'ai fait un comparatif avec 2024, que
OK.
le budget a été approuvé d'une augmentation de 4 Fait que le 2,91 représente 75 de cette augmentation-là.
OK.
Je trouvais ça très significatif comme comparable.
Oui, non, je suis d'accord avec vous, absolument. Alors, ce que vous nous dites en ce moment, c'est que vous allez nous revenir avec une décision. D'une façon ou d'une autre, cet argent-là, il faut le payer. Right? Alors, c'est juste de la façon que ça va être présenté aux résidents, ou bien as a user fee, ou bien as part of general taxation, correct? So you're going to come back with a recommendation on that. Is that the way I understand that?
C'est ça.
And that recommendation, you're saying in a future report, but I would assume that we're going to be discussing this at budget next week, during that budget?
Oui, on va en discuter un peu au budget, mais pour implanter cette nouvelle façon de facturer ce coût-là, ça serait peut-être plus pour 2026.
OK, je comprends. OK, so a longer term. OK. Merci. Questions, comments, members of council? Conseiller Lalonde?
Yeah, thank you. I heard some of the language that Sébastien used, like alarming, and I feel the same way. This is, in terms of taxation, that it does, on that basis, represent almost 3% of in taxation, when last year our total increase was 4% on a whole bunch of other items. I mean, this is going to make things very challenging, especially the fact that it's a non-negotiable, if that is indeed the case. That we start with 3%, notwithstanding the things that we have to do as a township through salaries and programs and all the rest of it. So I'm just bracing myself because of that 3% for what's going to be quite a challenging budget session this time around as compared to the last few. Anyway, I guess we'll deal with it when we get there. I had the pleasure of attending a luncheon of seniors last week, no less than 155 of them in the hall at Camille Pichet, and was bold enough to accept the idea of taking question period, which lasted about a half an hour. I have to share that there was significant concern and time spent on the issue of safety and security and policing in the streets, and the suggestion that we didn't see much of it other than when the fire alarms went off. Police usually went out with them, but otherwise, in terms of a general presence in the community, it was felt by many seniors that there was something lacking there. I guess, so I make that comment. I look at that 3%, and I hope, like in the old days, the mayor would say, well, don't get upset with us on school taxation. We have nothing to do with that, even though it represents a significant portion of your tax bill. And we're going to be saying kind of the same thing 30 years later with regards to, this 3% increase. I expect, or I'd like to expect that maybe in that webinar or that online meeting that our representative on the police board of services, our mayor, is going to participate or listen in on all of that and be able to share back some feelings or information or thoughts or comments.
Absolument, Conseiller Lalonde. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Lorne?
Yeah, I share the same concerns of the cost of going up to $2.8 million, $2.9 million from 2.2 just last year. That's significant. I think if everyone in the county and everyone in the province are feeling the same type of crunch that utilize OPP services, then maybe it's time that there's a review of policing in our, not just in our area, but in our not just for Russell Township, but for Russell County or even the United Counties of Prescott Russell, and see if there's something that the other municipalities might be looking to entertain as well, because whether that's their own police service or other services that provide policing in and around the area. I think now is the time to actually have those discussions again and see where we're at and see where other communities are at, and considering these costs are extremely inflated going forward. So,
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Armstrong.
I have to reiterate and support Councillor Laurent's comments, and perhaps it is certainly time, I think, now to investigate the cost of having alternative policing services, whether that be county or Eastern Ontario, maybe SDG wants to go in or something like this. But we need something where we have some more control over the cost and what those services are directed to. In my campaign, traffic enforcement was obviously a big one, but there were other comments that I received about, why don't the OPP do this? And eventually I'd like to have those questions answered, and I know very well that you can't right now. So I'm not going to even ask all of those details, but perhaps in a study of alternative police services, we may be able to come up with some of those questions answered.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. And just if you do have any specific questions, I do sit on the Police Service Board, and so we have access to getting questions answered and so on. So please don't hesitate to pass them my way. Any other comments, questions? Seeing, hearing none. Moving forward. So item E, Road Condition Assessment Report ISPW 2024. This is an update of a report that we get. I think the last version of this was 2019? 2019. So, Monsieur Bourgon, je vous cède la parole.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Donc, comme vous venez de le mentionner, on tente le plus possible à chaque 4 et 5 ans, de faire une mise à jour des conditions de notre système routier. Donc, c'est l'information que je vous ai partagée ce soir. Donc, on demande au conseil, ce soir, c'est seulement de recevoir l'information. Puis je pense que je recommanderais au conseil de prendre le temps de revoir l'information, puis on pourrait avoir de plus amples discussions au budget. Le logiciel ou la compagnie que nous avons utilisée pour performer l'évaluation cette année lui donne accès à pouvoir produire différents graphiques. Donc, comme exemple, si on dit qu'on investit 3 millions annuellement, voici l'effet que ça a à long terme là, sur le système routier. So we are preparing a few graphs or a few examples to show council based on the information that you have in front of you tonight.
Merci beaucoup. And we know that roads is one of the feedback that we receive the most of, probably, in terms of anytime we come up to budgets. So it is good to note that our investment in roads, if you look back at 2019, was about 1.1 million per year, and I think this past year was 2.2 million.
That's correct.
Yeah, so we are listening, we are adding more. One of the other things that I hear as well is often, we are adding layers to protect a long-term investment. And so a lot of our residents don't understand, and they're like, why are you redoing this road? You just did it 2-3 years ago, but it's all part of a process. So I think, as we do this, we also need to communicate that, make sure that residents see that we're just caring for that investment as opposed to haphazardly spending money on roads. So,
And to add, and now that we're looking more into our storm sewer system, lots of roads that are identified to be repaved or reconstruct, we also need to look into our storm sewer system. So obviously, throughout the years, there's going to be change or switch of road in our projection, just try to line up or to maximize the major investments.
absolutely. Okay, questions, comments? Members of council? Councillor Deakin?
Yeah, with that in mind, looking at the 25, 26, 27 listing where there are a lot of storm sewer reconstructions, in the next few years, how certain are we moving forward? Like, are we putting the financing together to be moving forward with those storm sewer projects in the short term to be reconstructing those roads accordingly, or would you still say that it's fairly nebulous, unsure?
Monsieur Bourgon?
Well, in the last few years, and again in our, what's we're being proposed in 2025 is to increase the operational of our of storm sewer. So basically to investigate further, to
Okay.
do more in-depth investigation. So where we can do the analysis, like, is that stretch good for another 15 years as an example? Is it worth it to pay, but at our next cycle to reconstruct the storm sewer? So that's the information we're working on, in order, again, to maximize our investment, maximize the dollar that we put in our roads.
Merci. Follow-up?
I think that the communication around that is really important for residents to understand. I have residents contacting me with that question, and just so that when they see that tag, they can have a sense of how that's connected, how the projects would work in tandem or not, and what stage we're at. Thank you.
Thank you. Monsieur Bourgon, le rapport est public, hein? So this is available on our website as well, so residents could see that list and everything else, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, it's public right now, and again, I want to reiterate that yearly the budget will be approved for roads to be paved like the following year. Obviously, our plan, based on what I just mentioned for storm sewer, can change. Maybe there's some segment that's worthwhile to fast track a couple of years, some maybe delay. So obviously, yeah, there's that tweak to be done as we're moving forward.
C'est compris. Merci beaucoup. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, moving to item F, discretionary.
Sorry, Mayor, if
Oh,
I can
sorry.
add, if council members do have question regarding the plan from now to our budget discussion, feel free to send it to
Absolutely,
staff
yeah.
and we can
And we will
address
be,
them.
yeah, and we will be looking at that for sure closely when we do our budget sessions, for sure. All right, so moving to item F, discretionary funding from the United Counties of Prescott Russell Report PR 2024-12. Madame Guittard, la parole est à vous. Nobody's hurt? Broken glass? Merci. Madame Camille Laflamme to the rescue. Merci beaucoup, c'est bien apprécié. Madame Guittard.
Merci. That's the regular report that we bring in on an annual basis. That's the funds that we receive, that the mayor receives from counties. And this year we distributed that money for the swim team at the Barracudas at the Russell Pool.
Excellent, thank you. Questions, comments, members of council? Seeing none, we move to item G, Resolution 2024-01 from the Community Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Advisory Committee, Truth and Reconciliation Initiatives. So motion for Truth and Reconciliation Initiatives, Russell Township. So I will ask Councillor Deacon to speak to that.
Sure. Just before September 30th, the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation this year, the committee met and had been working for a couple of months on reviewing the 94 calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The work of the committee was supported by a document, a resource produced by the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, identifying which of the 94 calls would touch upon local municipal government. The committee looked at those calls, worked with administration, and further whittled down which would be relevant for our lower tier government. And that is the resolution that you have in front of you would be those calls and those actions for the local municipality to take. And so I will welcome any questions from members of council and will ask to have this one pulled for an amendment.
Thank you. Questions, comments, members of council? At this point, the way, so we are going to amend and pull, but at this point, it's just to receive the recommendations. And so we'll pull this item and we can discuss it later as well. Any questions before we move forward? Okay, so item G has been pulled. C'est bon, Madame Camille Laflamme? Okay. Item, pardon, Conseiller Lalonde?
Richard.
Oh. Monsieur Godin.
Merci, Mr. Mayor. No, I just wanted to highlight that, Conseiller Aaron had a
Oh,
comment
okay.
or a question.
Conseiller Lalonde.
Yeah, I just wanted to applaud the effort and recognize that, having read this, the recommendations to our own council, that they all make good sense, and they touch on a number of important issues. One, of course, being engagement with our First Nations and Aboriginal community resident members. So I'm excited by the proposal. I look forward to supporting it later.
Merci. Any other comments? All right, so this item will be pulled and discussed separately and voted on separately. Moving to item H, Resolution 2024-02 from the Community Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee, Community Youth Infographic Challenge. And so, Councillor Deakin, once again, keep you busy.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate to speak on behalf of the very engaged committee members that we have, and it just shows the diversity of ideas and passions that come from those volunteers that serve. This community Community Youth Infographic Challenge for 2025 was an idea that came forth from the committee after about a dozen different consultations held with community members, where different groups, different diverse cultural, gender identity, sexuality identity, etc., groups in our community were saying how important visibility is as a first step to understanding the diversity that's here in our community and the richness that brings to our cultural fabric. And with that in mind, the committee came forward with the idea to engage local youth in developing digital infographics using Statistics Canada data that would show us in a visual form. I'm a data person, so I love the census profile. I'm there a lot, but not everybody wants to read through charts. This challenge would bring forward visual representations and storytelling about who's here in the township, what are their stories, what's their ancestry, their languages, etc. So we would be engaging young people to help tell those stories, and so the resolution tonight would be to request that council consider, the resolution in front right now is to receive, but I would be making an amendment to ask council to consider directing a budgetary amount for a prize for this challenge. So I welcome questions, and I'll have this pulled as well.
Monsieur Godet?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. I just wanted to highlight, we can pull it and discuss it further, but I wanted to still highlight that the way the resolution is worded in the agenda, just by receiving this recommendation, we will automatically add this as a request from committees, which is one of the documents that we do go over when we do have our working sessions for the budget. So we will be discussing this next week at either on Thursday or on Friday when we go through those
That's
working
great.
sessions. I just want to highlight that.
So it will be there in the discussions for approval by council.
Excellent. Merci.
Councillor Lauren?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Godet, Mr. Dagenet, can you please remind me, does that committee currently have a budget allocated to it on an annual basis? Like for 2024?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so I don't have the specific answer. We don't have the specific answer right now. I believe there is. I remember we had some discussions, I think it was during last year's budget sessions, where a certain budget line was allocated for committees. But I don't recall the specific details of that. We can definitely circle back to you and provide a complete answer.
Okay, maybe Councillor Deakin might know. As
Yeah,
chair of
I
the
believe
committee.
that last year's discussions led to a committee pot of around $7,500. And so these requests are simply due diligence that we can dip into that pot for those funds. If that's, I don't know if I doubt that the amount is still $7,500 from last year, but there is a line in the budget, I believe.
Just to confirm, this is to be used in the new year, if I remember correctly, right? In early in year, yeah, okay.
And
Councillor Lauren?
Yeah, it's just the way it's worded, right? So I just want to make sure, because it's talking about its annual budget. So trying to understand what that annual budget is and ensuring that we know, because right now, between the two, and I don't have a problem with the request. I just want to procedurally how we need to proceed, because I just want to make sure that I'm understanding the budgetary amounts and whatnot. It's 500 for that one, 1,000 for this one. And again, I'm okay with the request. I just want to know how the money's not being allocated out, and if there's a $7,500 pool of money, if that's the case, then what is the procedure for committees to actually request money from that pool? Is it going to council? Is it going to administration? Like, what is that process? Because maybe we never considered that aspect of it. And, you know, if we're allocating money to committees, then my opinion is the committee should be able to decide how they dispense the funds of their budget that we've allocated to them. So,
Okay.
you know, just something to think about during the budget discussion then.
Thank you. So we're clear, this is good to move to our budget discussions as an item, and the request is there for 1,000. In that same discussion, we can have a general discussion on committee budgets as a whole and how they're allocated. Follow-up, Councillor Lauren.
Yep, just want to make sure through the clerk and through Mr. Godin that if we pull these items out and we vote on them separately and there's amendments requesting us to approve the recommendations within the actual resolution, does that commit council to those funding amounts tonight? I just want to make sure that, you know, because we're going to talk about during budget next week and allocating these funds, but if we approve these resolutions tonight, it's basically approving the amounts.
We're approving receiving the resolution unless it is pulled
But I think
and
there's
amended.
I think there's amendments coming, which is why they're being pulled out. So I'm assuming
Well,
it's to
one of
incorporate them.
one of them was, this particular one has not been asked for to be pulled. Councillor Deegan?
I was under the belief that I had to pull it to make the directive for it to be added to the budget discussions. Now I'm understanding that that's not the case.
That's correct.
But for item 11G, there is.
That's a separate one,
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you.
Does that make sense, Councillor Lauren, on your side?
I guess I'll wait till the amendments and then we can.
Yeah, but so just confirming that item H is not being pulled here. And there's simple direction to staff to look at that at the budget sessions. That's a request that's there and it'll be discussed at budget. Sorry, Mr. Godin.
Right, merci, Mr. Mayor. That's correct. So without amending the resolution, we will be discussing this request at the budget sessions.
Item
And
H.
to answer your question, Councillor Lauren, if it had been separated and amended, it would be a commitment, but when we do discuss the budget, that could always be reversed. And there's going to have to be some difficult decisions to be made during the working sessions. But by amending the resolutions to approve them, we are essentially supporting the resolution that's in there.
Conseiller Lalonde?
Yeah, I appreciate the last few minutes of discussion on the subject of the budget and how this goes through and all the rest of it. I want to go back to the essence of the proposal, though, just to congratulate Councillor Deakin. Again, you know, this is a huge public engagement initiative of the type that we've been talking about at council over the last year. You know, how do we get people more interested and involved in what's going on in the community? And at this level of I was referring to them as the youth leaders of today, because I know there's quite a group of them on that committee that can be considered youth leaders. They're going to be our adult leaders of tomorrow. So how do we build that bridge between what they're doing as youth and where they end up tomorrow? I think getting them involved in an activity like this and helping us to understand what our community actually looks like these days, and making it a challenge and adding a sort of a competitive piece to it with prizes, I think is an excellent initiative. So I just want to speak to the initiative itself and say that I think it's an excellent step forward in public engagement with our youth.
Merci, Conseiller Lalonde, and I would echo that absolutely. So it's just a procedure process, It's just a procedurally, but certainly every resolution that's coming here certainly does demonstrate that engagement, which is always encouraging. So thank you. All right, so moving to item I, Resolution 2024-03 from the Community Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee, Key Performance Indicators Evaluation Update. Excellent work on that, by the way. I'm a little envious that I don't have those kind of reports from my committees, but I'll let you speak to that.
Thank you. I don't have much to say. I think it speaks for itself, just to say that the committee has as part of its KPIs, a duty to be cross-communicating its activities, and so this will be part of an annual report that will come this year and next year and the following for the remainder of the term.
Excellent, thank you very much. Any other comments, questions from members of council, members of staff on this item? No. Okay, I believe we are moving to item 12, reports from investigator ombudsman. We have none. Item 13, notice of motions. We have none. Item 14, je vais juste lire en français pour changement. Alors, période des questions sur la réunion du jour. Les questions doivent être portées sur un point de l'ordre du jour. Avant de poser une question, inscrire votre nom et votre adresse sur la feuille d'inscription. Si vous souhaitez recevoir une réponse du conseil ou du personnel, laissez votre numéro de téléphone et un courriel ou un courriel. Annoncez uniquement votre nom avant de poser la question. Et juste à savoir, c'est qu'en posant des questions lors des réunions de conseil, vous consentez à faire partie de la diffusion directe et de l'enregistrement officiel public des délibérations. Alors, questions on the agenda. Welcome, Mr. Bass.
My question is to the Global Public Affairs Committee. How many townships are you guys representing with this type of grant?
Okay, so question through me here, please, Mr. Bass. So Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Dagenet, or if we can get that question answered. If you don't mind just coming to the microphone so we can have it on record, please. Yeah, and it's just a direct question, direct answer.
We're currently not representing any municipalities
In this.
accessing those funds.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Bass?
That was one. I was wondering what percent, of the 2.9% increase for OPP for Russell Township, what part of our tax bill is that going to be from?
Right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, Monsieur Dagenet, that comes out of general taxation. That 2.9% is an increase of general taxation by 2.9%. The actual increase for our bill from the OPP is in the range of about 24%. But that represents, to you as a resident, 2.9%, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, but that's over the whole bill or just which part of
Over your tax bill for the year.
the whole tax?
The general
Because-
taxation bill.
Okay, because there's part that's provincial, and then there's one that's,
I'll get Monsieur Dagenet, Monsieur Godin.
It's just the township part, not the counties or the school boards.
okay, so
Thank
it's
you.
just the township.
Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering, Mr. Lalonde, how could you already tell us that you're going to accept or vote in favor of a proposal that you haven't even heard the proposal?
So questions to me directly, please.
Sorry.
Conseiller Lalonde?
Well, I haven't voted yet. I haven't done anything yet except to say that I read the report, just like the public has read the report, and I just wanted to show my support and my enthusiasm for what is being proposed. So we'll
Okay.
be voting on it soon. I haven't done anything yet.
Merci, Conseiller Lalonde.
Okay. So for the funding of the recreation complex, what percent would this grant that we're getting, if we got from the government, what percent would cover the sports complex?
So the project for the rec complex is 104 million. There's a maximum potential of 10 million for the provincial grant, which is just shy of 10%. Councillor Lauren?
But there's not just one grant that we're looking at for that project. So that's the provincial grant of $200 million, but there's also, I think, the Green Initiative project that they talked about earlier, that they're putting a request in tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. There's another one, there's others that I've asked for them to look into. There's more that may come up over the next couple of years, but, you know, it's not just one grant that is being looked at.
Okay,
Thank
it
you,
just
Councillor.
concerns me because we're gonna get a 3% cost already on our OPP fee, and we're always talking that you guys.
What's your
are going-
question?
Sorry, not a question. just a
Thank you.
comment.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Hi, my name is Claude Seguin. I've been a resident of Embrun for 12 years. It's my first time participating at a council meeting, so thank you for the opportunity to ask questions. I guess my first question is, can I ask questions just about the topics that were covered today, or can I ask any question?
No, strictly on topics of the agenda.
Okay. So how does one go about asking other questions?
All members of council here and staff are available to you through email, through phones. All phone numbers are listed on the website. You can always reach any one of us. And if it's operational, we'll usually direct it to staff because that's the realm of staff. And then your questions get answered. So that could be on anything, any questions you have relating to the township. Absolutely.
Perfect, thank you. So with respect to today's meeting, regarding the 24% increase for the OPP, would that cost be passed on to taxpayers directly?
Yeah, so that Monsieur Dagenet was explaining that represents a 2.9% increase on your tax bill as a resident. So if, let's say, you were paying $1,000 in taxes last year, that would be $290 more. Sorry, yeah, $290 more.
Okay.
Am I doing that right? Yeah, $29. I thought that was too much. I'm
Okay.
getting ready for that 10%. Yeah, so that would be added to your tax bill individually. That impact. On
Okay, I
there.
mean, that's not excessive, an extra $29.
Well, it's just 2.9% plus, everything adds up. So right now,
Yeah.
if you, yeah.
I know this is a tangent, but we also discussed having, increasing Mr. Councillor Armstrong, right? Oh, sorry, we
Lauren.
need to address the questions to you.
Yes.
Yes, okay, so with respect to, so I find there's a lot of speeding on the roads, and I would support a camera ticketing.
But that's not on the
It's not
agenda
on the
tonight.
agenda,
No.
right, okay. Let
We,
me just
yeah,
see.
feel free to reach any one of us on that.
We did talk about paving roads, right?
We did present a road paving plan, yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So I would highly recommend that we repave Notre Dame. It's getting really bumpy.
So you know, in the next 2 years, we're completely redoing the infrastructure of Notre Dame, and that
Okay.
road will be under repair and complete remodeling between 25 and 26. And I'll ask Monsieur Bourgon is getting ready to say something, because I know he's excited about that project.
I
Monsieur
am too.
Bourgon?
Merci, Mr. Mayor. So yes, I'm excited for that project. It's a joint venture with United Counties of Prescott-Russell, and that was triggered by their complete reconstruction of our storm sewer and on that segment. So yes, it will be at over the next two construction summers.
So it will come with some grief to residents over some time, but we'll minimize that as much as possible.
And if I can add, as soon as we have, we're more ahead, as our plans are coming along, we'll have some open house sessions
Yes.
to inform residents, and same for our business owners as well along the corridor.
Fantastic, merci.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Doug Estabrooks.
Welcome.
Just a quick question with respect to the Global Public Affairs presentation. Can I ask a question? Have we on council ever applied for any grant or contribution towards the Sportsplex prior to initiating that project? Is there any record of us ever applying before and be accepted or refused?
So, Monsieur Godin, did we actually apply before? I know we've been on the lookout for these throughout the process. Madame Guittard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We've applied back in 21, if I'm not mistaken, for the ICIP. We were like really just starting the project. Nothing, we had no concept or anything. And we didn't pass the first level, which was the provincial level. So yes, we did some application. That was the only one. And since then, there was nothing at all available, neither on the provincial or federal levels.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Rhonda Bradley.
Good evening, Rhonda. Ms. Bradley.
Thank you. My question is related to the storm sewer plans and what will be showing up on the, as proposal for the budget. We'll be discussing next week. My question relates to how many of these projects will relate to the 2019 WSP plan that was brought to council, where 18 storm infrastructure improvement centers were identified. So is there a correlation between that asset management plan and what will be coming forward for presentation to be included in the budget?
Monsieur Bourbon, I'm not sure if this is a bit of a stretch on the connection to the agenda, perhaps through the budget maybe discussion, but Monsieur Bourbon, if you can answer.
Merci, Mr. Masso. Yes, I think under our budget items, yeah, our master plan that was conducted in 2018, 2019, that does complement our condition assessment that we're doing. So we need to take consideration both aspect in preparing in our plan for our storm sewer.
Okay, merci.
I'm sorry, I don't understand both.
Monsieur Bourbon.
So one being the analysis that was performed by WSP in 2019, which we looked at the climate change impact on our system and the condition of our storm sewer that we're currently conducted. So we need to have both study or both documentation to have the best informed decision or recommendation for council.
Merci, Monsieur Bourbon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lauren?
Sorry, I just want to know if I can make a quick statement, if that's okay. It's just because we hear it a lot, and even tonight there was a question about it, and I just want to reassure members of the community that we were always looking for grant applications for any project that qualifies under a provincial, federal, other grant initiatives that are out there. Why didn't we do it sooner or later? Well, sometimes the programs aren't available. And sometimes we have to wait. And sometimes we have to wait till there's something in the ground. We just, I'm confident that staff, and especially now with the hiring of outside assistants, that we are digging in and looking for any opportunity to receive funds that will help bring down the tax burden on the residents for any of these projects. Some projects, when we're going through the budget next week, some projects in there will be contingent on successful application of grants, while sometimes others are not. Like the recreation complex, we had budgeted that through with a financing plan that wasn't contingent, but now we're looking for grants. We're aggressively looking for grants, sponsorships, and partnerships. So I just want to make it clear to the resident that we are always looking, staff is always looking for money to offset projects. And I just wanted to say that because I know we've had a lot of questions lately about that.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely correct. That is it's a given. We are here at this table. We're all residents, and it's impacting all of us. So we push that very much so. Councillor Deakin?
Just to add to Councillor Laurent's remarks, there is, I believe, an annual report that comes to council that's available to the public that demonstrates which grants have been pursued, which have been successful, and those would be available in perpetuity on Civic Web.
Thank you. Good point. All right. Oh, Councillor Armstrong.
One other point. All our major projects that we approve, they are all, when they're approved, they are all approved with financing arrangements already in place, whether that come from grants, taxation, or some combination thereof.
That's correct, including
Okay.
asset reserve, which we've been doing since 2018. And yes, we would not approve anything here unless there is a plan to pay for it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Dagenet. Yeah, okay. All right, so we're closing the question period. Thank you very much, everyone. We're moving to item 15, resolution. So motion that council approve all recommendations with the exception of G, listed on the agenda under item 11, reports from departments and council committees. This is moved by Councillor Armstrong.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes?
First, we need to put the main motion, and then we'll make the amendment to remove G, if you don't mind.
So motion that, I just read the motion.
Just the main
I
motion.
thought I had this down pat today. Jeez. Motion that council approve all recommendations listed on the agenda under item 11, reports from departments and council committees. This is moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Lauren. So we have an amendment to remove item G, and that has to be moved and seconded as well. So that's moved by Councillor Lalonde, seconded by Councillor Deakin. All in favor for removing item G? Thank you. So now we're going to move. Now we're going to do a motion without the G, right? Okay. Motion that council approve all recommendations listed on the agenda item under item 11, reports from departments and councils, except for item G, and that is moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Lauren. All in favor? And passed. Thank you very much. Now we're going to go to item G. All right, so resolution 2024-01 from the Community Advisory and Equity and Inclusion Advisory Committee, Truth and Reconciliation Initiatives. I need a mover and seconder to put that on the table. Moved by Councillor Deakin, seconded by Councillor Lalonde. Item is on the table for discussion or amendments. If I can, before we move to that, I would propose that we just direct staff to come back to us with a report on what can and can't be done around this. But I leave it open to discussion. Councillor Deakin?
That was the amendment that I would have proposed.
Okay, I'm not sure, do we need an amendment? In that case, Monsieur Godin, Madame Camille-Laflamme?
Merci, Mr. Mayor. I think if the direction is simply to bring a report back to kind of operationalize those items to see what the impact is, a simple direction would suffice.
Okay. That makes sense, everyone? Okay, so we just vote on the item as it was presented then. So it's on the table. And so we're not amending it then. All right, so I'll call the vote as it is, moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by...
It's already been moved, seconded by...
Oh, sorry, call the vote, thank you. All right, thank you very much, everyone. That was almost flawless, but not quite. OK, merci. Alors, on continue. Alors, numéro 16, bylaw and attachments. Motion that council approve bylaws 2024-83 and 2024-84 inclusively for first, second, and third reading as listed on the agenda. And this is moved by Councillor Lalonde, seconded by Councillor Lauren. All in favor? Thank you. Moving to number 17, new business reports. We have none. Number 18, other business. Business presented by council members. 18A, councillor comments. Councillor Armstrong.
Yes, I'd just like to make a comment that early in my election campaign, I made some Facebook comments that named one of our bylaw enforcement officers. I should not have named any bylaw enforcement officer, and I apologize for naming that bylaw enforcement officer.
Councillor Armstrong, I appreciate the feedback. Thank you so much. Much obliged. Moving to item 19, public consultation hearings. We have none. Item 20, announcements. I'm going to start. I would like to introduce to council Monsieur Roger Duffac, c'est ça? C'est bien dit? Oui, okay. So Roger is going to replace Maryse as she leaves. Pardon? Oh, is that me? I'm listening to myself. So Roger is going to replace Maryse as she goes on maternity leave. So wishing you all the very best and welcome Roger to the table. Looking forward to working with you. All right. Any other announcements, members of council? Conseiller Lalonde?
Yeah, just a couple shout outs, I guess you'd call it, and recognizing that the weeks go by here like seconds sometimes. Things happen quickly, and but I did want to go back just to September 23rd when we were sort of arm wrestling here over trying to come up with an interim measure on reducing speed, vehicle speed at corner Edie and Castor, and we gave direction to Monsieur Bourgon and his group to go find out quickly, if we could, what the chances were of getting some signage changed sooner rather than later. I was very surprised to see, and I appreciate the effort that Monsieur Bourgon made, that within only a couple days after we passed that or gave that direction, that the signs actually were put in at week's end in 4 or 5 different places. So whatever it is Monsieur Bourgon did with his counterparts at UCPR, I just wanted to thank you for that. It was noticed by residents who were actually quite surprised, as was I, that the change and the reduced speed went in as quickly as it did. Also, again, through Jonathan Bourgon's group, staff for sure, the hazardous waste initiative that we offered to the residents, which was on September 28th. I usually have a lot of stuff that I have to get rid of for some reason or another. And again, when I think back to a number of years ago, we used to line up at 7:15 in the morning all the way down to the end of 400 close to South Russell Road and make sure we had a big tall Tim's coffee to wait out our turn to get all the way down and get inside. Again, this year it went so quick, so smooth. Obviously, lessons learned. I want to thank Jonathan and his group for that. I went in there and out of there in about 4 minutes flat. But one thing I want to add to this is that the greeting, because, you know, as we arrive there, we're greeted by employees that want to check our license to make sure we live in this township, et cetera, and then you move down the line. Everyone I encountered was very polite, very professional, in a good mood, which is much appreciated. And the fact that they're working on Saturday away from their family, I know they're getting paid for this, but still it's a Saturday away from family. And the mood all the way through the experience was first class. So I just wanted to give a shout out to you and your group for that as well. Thanks very much.
Here, I agree. It was that lineup. I remember that one lineup that one year. I think I waited less time to go see the Rolling Stones in the 80s, but it was amazing. So, félicitations à toi et à ton équipe. Hein.
Merci, M. Rousseau-le-Maire, M. Conseiller Lalonde. Je vais définitivement passer le mot à l'équipe demain matin.
Fantastique. Conseiller Laurent.
Yeah, I just want to also mention for next week is leaf and yard waste pickup. And it's, there's a change recently, I don't know, the last couple of times. I guess it would be where you put it out with your garbage at the curb on your specific pickup day. So you can have it by the curb. And just a reminder that the timing is 7 a.m. for people to have their garbage out at the curb. Because sometimes they come very early in the morning and they won't come back if you miss it. So just a reminder for people to have it out. So leaf and yard waste starting next Monday on your regular pickup day, and have all your garbage, recycling, and yard waste out by 7 a.m.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Laurent. Yeah, is that correct? Yeah. All right. Any other announcements from members of council? Seeing none. So the next step is our strategic discussion. And so perhaps a little 10-minute break before we initiate the strategic discussion. So let's reconvene here at 7:33. Good? Thank you. Alors, on est de retour. And we are going to move to item 21. Pardon me, strategic discussion. Alors, perhaps we can start with Monsieur Godin and lead us down, or Monsieur Bourgon, pardon, Monsieur Bourgon, lead us down through this discussion.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. So we did, following our conversation at last council, council did receive the action plan for affordable housing. So we regroup the recommendation to hopefully make the conversation easier for council. So basically, there are several recommendations that touch on staffing, as an example. So that's what we tried to accomplish with that cheat sheet for council, and to have a note, plus if it's included or in the budget, or what type of budget we're looking at. So hopefully, this quick document is going to assist council in the conversation tonight. We're here to listen priorities, or what council would like to see into our next week conversation for a budget.
Merci, Monsieur. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Bourgon. So I'll open the floor to council members on this item. Who would like to start? Councillor Armstrong.
Start from the left, or their right. I'm looking through these, and I look at the only real hard, concrete, tangible recommendation, I think, is number 6, surplus land designated for affordable and attainable housing. I'm not exactly sure how much surplus land the township has or envisions in the future, but that being said, if we do envision something, if we provide that for affordable and attainable housing in some way, whether we ensure that we sell it to a not-for-profit or something like Habitat for Humanity or something like this, as opposed to putting it out on the open market, prioritizing them, what would be the impact of such things on our finances? Because they're selling for perhaps less than market value, would have an impact. And we can do that as long as we do it for a not-for-profit. We can't do it for a for-profit corporation. So that's something that I would think would be something in the future. Maybe we would need a surplus land disposal policy or something that would allow for that. That's my comment on the issue.
Merci beaucoup. Any other comments from members of council on this presentation? Councillor Lawrence, sorry.
For us to create this action plan, do we have to own the land that we're designating or attempt to designate, or is there a special zoning that would be required for what we would classify affordable housing? Or, we talk about, we've heard the term tiny houses or something like that. Like, is there some sort of a zoning that needs to happen? And it doesn't need to be our land. And I know we're smack dab in the middle of an OP. Is there a way to identify lands? Is there, again, whether we own it or not, if there is the right person out there that wants to do something, then maybe that now is the opportunity to make those decisions. And, whether that's through this liaison role or not, but I'm just trying to understand that process and what that would look like. Because I see zoning in here, I see other things, so just asking the question.
Monsieur Bourgon? Ms. Ball?
Thank you. We have not had an opportunity to amend our zoning bylaw yet. However, once the official plan policies are enacted through our new official plan is when we would review the uses under our new zoning bylaw. So at this moment, our zoning bylaw does not capture any use per se.
Councillor Lord?
So that being said, then, is there a use that we should be looking at in our official plan process that should be potentially captured to enable us to then identify the zoning that would be required for these types of communities?
There are certainly uses, yes, that we could review through our official plan review.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Deacon.
I prepared some higher level remarks, just noting that what stands out in this plan most for me from the consultant is the idea that developing a complete community that works for everyone isn't just a good thing to do, but it's a smart thing to do fiscally, economically, and socially. And that these things are all connected. When I looked at the list of recommendations, what came to mind for me was a question on how to be a good partner in contributing to this vision of a more complete community. And I think, you know, Russell Township's being asked to do more than, I'll touch on the land piece, but develop policy that enables more diverse housing stock in our community, whether it be private, not-for-profit, supportive, et cetera, to be collaborative and support the key players, perhaps create more linkages with those key players, to mobilize the community's assets to create purpose-built rentals and affordable ownership. And my favorite, of course, is applying rigor to accountability through tracking and measurement. As we move through the budget sessions and season, I'm going to be looking at these recommendations with scale being top of mind, and I think we're kind of hitting on that already, but I'll give 3 examples from these recommendations. The first one being, does the township need a full inventory of land and policy in order to launch an expression of interest for purpose-built rentals or affordable ownership projects? Or do we just need to get started with the lands that we know are there and could become surplus? And the reason I ask this question is, what was the scale of the intervention that we applied to collaborating with Maison Interlude for Parc AG Bordeaux? What worked and is replicable there and what didn't work or what could be improved? So a lot of the way that I approach the work of the township is at that inflection point, right? Do we go all in on the policy, or do we just get it done, or is it a bit of both? The second scale question is around the first 2 recommendations, which I'm not favorable to the township leading on, the idea of organizing breakfast series and housing summits. I perceive our community to be still small enough that the work of relationships happens by making phone calls and not organizing large conferences. I would hope that that would be at the scale of the counties to lead with township support. And my third example of the scale question is the big one on the housing liaison role. Ms. Ball from the staff and I sat with a developer and heard about all of the benefits that can come on developing more diverse housing stock for both nonprofit providers and private sector with a role like this to navigate the system more swiftly and to receive support on how to unlock funding for the purpose-built rentals we need. And we did hear that throughout the consultations, as the housing committee as well, was the challenges of accessing funding and making it work. And so I think that's a key piece that that role could potentially support with. But that's just the one recommendation, that role itself. And of course, in the guide that was provided to us for this strategic discussion, a lot of those other recommendations that are being considered are being couched under that role as well. So much broader housing responsibilities on that individual's shoulders. So I'd just like to understand, I'm going to be thinking about this towards budget, is what evidence is there of the value of this role in other municipalities of our size and with our ambition? Salaries are, of course, considerable investments. Does it require a permanent full-time position? We looked at if you look at the recommendations, there's a 5-year horizon for most of that work. And what I didn't see in the guide, and I'm curious about, is how would that role plug into already existing resources, roles, and responsibilities across planning, eco-dev, communications, functional areas. And I add to that the responsibility of relationship building, advocacy, and championing that fall to senior administration and members of council. And I add to that the county's work, of course, the housing services team. I did have the opportunity to look at their draft 10-year housing and homelessness plan. And it appears that scorecard development, so a tool to assist lower tier municipalities to measure and convening and partnerships are also part of their work to be done. So I want to see if we're looking at, this is what I'm wondering about strategically before the budget is how does this role, how is it positioned with all of these other elements of the ecosystem growing and shifting and moving around? And to go back to my earlier point about a complete community, I'm very supportive of taking action on housing, but we know that it's interdependent with elements like transit, small business support, childcare, volunteerism. And I do add volunteerism in there as an infrastructure piece for our community, because when residents come to me with concerns about the community growing too quickly, and that sense that they don't want to see more development, that they don't want to see multi-residential, they don't want to see affordable housing, often the fear that they're bringing is a reflection of losing the small town feel and the aspects of taking care of each other as a community that they're really concerned about. So I do think that those things need to be considered in tandem, and I wonder how this role will have interplay with those other elements of municipal infrastructure supported by other levels of government as well. So yeah, I take the recommendations pretty seriously, and I'd like to see the deliverables realized in some way, shape, or form. Again, I think it's the smart thing to do. And as the budget progresses, I look forward to seeing some further defining of that scale and the positionality of the township's investment and how it fits into that ecosystem that I mentioned. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Just a clarification, Monsieur Godin, the role, the position here that we're referring to is part of the eco-dev, community dev position. Is that correct, Monsieur Dagenet, Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Monsieur Maire. So we haven't shown anything concrete to council yet on this, but there are plans to add a position, and which will be included or is included in the draft 2025 budget, which will take on some of these roles and responsibilities. And yes, there will be a close link with economic development, but more focus on the community side.
Merci. Councillor Lauren?
I have a few things to add, but I'd like to just make the comment of, in terms of any new roles that are being proposed for the budget, my expectation is that we would see a job description with those roles to fully understand what any new roles are that are being added to the budget. Like this one, what would they be doing exactly? Because I have a couple of points here. You know, will this person be looking for partnerships with investors and developers to create these, whether it's rental units, tiny home communities, you know, other rental properties or whatever? Is that part of that role? So I would like to see that. Secondly, will they be, you know, is somebody looking at, you know, for a developer or investor who wants to come to this community, you know, what are the potentials for, you know, whether it be exemptions or reductions of DC charges, building permits, taxation classes, specifically for those types of affordable housing projects, and to ensure they maintain that affordability factor for obviously a period of time if they're getting any type of subsidies. You know, we need to make sure we're looking at that. And then I still come back to the word in this under recommendation number 6, surplus land designated for affordable and attainable housing. Surplus land, is that municipally owned land we're talking? Or is that other land that we are saying is surplus because it's vacant? I'm trying to understand what that is.
It's my understanding that surplus as it stands is existing land that's in the inventory that we currently own, that township owns. Am I wrong in that assumption? Mr. Bocco?
So yeah, that was our assumption as well, but I understand the comment as well that it could be wider than just what's being owned by the municipality.
That
So
would,
it's- I don't
that
have
would
the
include
answer
us
to confirm,
purchasing
but I
land.
do understand or appreciate the comment to clarify
Okay.
the issue.
Thank you.
I will hand it over to Conseiller Lalonde in 2 seconds. I just want to clarify, in terms of this process, I mean, have we, for new positions, have we been provided job descriptions in the past for new positions at budget time? And I know this is possibly a good rationale right now, considering the budget that we're faced. So I'm not disagreeing with Councillor Lorraine's request, but I just want to make sure that you know, that's reasonable, the request, to make sure that we have that. Monsieur Godet?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. And so we haven't in the past shared the actual complete job descriptions. When we're proposing new positions to add to the org chart, we will definitely share with council high-level expectations as far as the goals of it and key deliverables that we're trying to target with them. As far as the detailed job descriptions, I think it's a bit more operational to formulate that in a way that to implement those priorities we're trying to address. So to answer your question, no, in the past we haven't provided council with a review of the job descriptions, but we definitely, when we're adding new positions, try to provide council with as much information to make sure that what we're adding as a resource is addressing the needs of the township as viewed and accepted by council.
Okay. C'est bon, merci. Does that make sense, Councillor Lorraine, in terms of position?
It does, but, you know, just because we haven't done it before doesn't mean it wouldn't be a good practice to do that going forward, especially considering the first draft budget that we see is got 10% in there, and that's never happened either. So let's just, you know, if we're asking for additional staffing resources that are not currently in the budget, I want to know what they're going to do for that salary. So that's my request.
Monsieur Godet? I think the detail you're proposing will give us that information.
That would be my hope. I mean, I still want to keep the discussion with council at the
Strategic level.
at a strategic level. I don't disagree with what you're saying, Councillor Lauren. But what I would expect from council is a clear definition of what the expectations are, and if there are some specific things that council wants to share with council, as you've done tonight, Councillor Lauren, these can be communicated, and where I think we're looking for as far as the direction goes when we're approving new positions is to understand what we're trying to address and how we address it. We can kind of operationalize that in our job descriptions are actually, they're still pretty high level as well. We don't go into too much into the details as far as the list of tasks, because that can evolve. We try to focus it more on the responsibility area and on the deliverables. So I guess I understand your point, Councilor, and I'm not in disagreement, and we're happy to answer any questions there are about those roles, but we will try to present council with as much information.
It will be definitely
to
helpful
utilize.
given the difficult decisions that have to be made. I apologize for keeping you waiting, Conseiller Lalonde.
Oh, thank you. No, it's all good. I'm just reminiscing about where this all started 3 years ago to get us here tonight, and I'm excited. I think it's a good thing that's happening. It's been a long time coming, but they say that good things are worth waiting for. I think we're right there. I echo a number of Councillor Deacon's comments, in part for obvious reasons. I mean, we were partners in crime on the Affordable Housing Committee that Township saw fit to strike a few years ago. So we spent a lot of time arguing, debating, and then coming to some good decisions on the way forward. So I won't repeat some of the things that she said, but I'm just going to sort of work at a higher level of the thing as well, which is where I'd like to be right now. And that, in that sense, you know, there was a comment, for instance, I'm going to cherry pick here, bear with me. you know, the notion, at one point we started talking about, you know, community wealth development more than affordable housing, because we saw that there were other factors that come into play that support or affect affordable housing or purpose-built housing for our residents. Quickly, you know, the transit piece. You know, when you're looking at building purpose-built or cooperative housing or bringing Habitat for Humanity in here, you're talking about people that may have a car or share a car or use Uber on a weekend if they're lucky. But really, you're looking at residents that are looking for public transportation. So you can't separate one from the other. They really, it's a hand-in-glove issue. And that's why we came to rest on the idea of this community wealth development. You know that I talked earlier, and in our own report, you know, it's the idea of, I was thinking more so in terms of a champion, either a community wealth development champion or a affordable housing champion. We're talking right now about a liaison officer. I get it. I mean, what it tells me, though, or what I see in that is that it's work at different levels. And now I'm going to give you a couple of concrete examples of what I mean by different levels. Of my own doing, rightly or wrongly, you know, over the last couple of years, because we were working on our report and doing our own analysis, hung out with some developers, hung out with Habitat for Humanity in Kentville, hung out with all the seniors' homes operators, and pick their brains. I give a shout out to a resident in the audience tonight, Rhonda Bradley. I was invited very recently to Habitat for Humanity Ottawa's annual general meeting, sort of a weekend retreat that they do, where they look at where they're going and what they're trying to do. And typically they had invited councillors and some mayors, and I was fortunate enough to be chosen to come out and speak to them. And to my surprise, Rhonda Bradley was the moderator for the weekend for that stuff, and we got a chance to talk about a lot of things. She's got a heart for affordable housing, and we're talking about keeping it simple too. We're putting out a lot of tasks and activity here. Something I'd like to make sure we keep in focus is that maybe we do a few things and we do them well. For some of the work that I was doing, and not speaking on behalf of admin or council, but at the same time instigating conversations with all these groups, it became clear that really that's a job that still has to be done. In fact, follow through on some of the exciting exchanges that I've had, and I'm not sure that I see that being managed by a liaison officer. To be quite frank, I see it being managed maybe at the higher level of our administration through the CAO, because you're going to sit down with Patrick Terrien at Co-op Co-op Embrun, and start talking about, you know, what if we did this, and what if Habitat was willing to come and sit? Like, this is high-level discussion stuff. And it's not that I set the table or that Lisa has set the table for that, but the conversations have taken place. And so I'm wondering in that position whether they'll be smart enough and what their qualifications will be in terms of whether they'll be good enough to work at that level of the thing. I'm not an expert, but I found my way through it. And I was bold enough to just make those calls and meet with Habitat and then get myself into their AGM. So I just want us to think at that higher level of how, you know, like I say, ground level work, yes, and I take Councillor Lauren's point, you know, want to see what that job description looks like. For me, not so much in budget time, I just want to see what it looks like because of my 3 years of spending time in all this and having had my own ideas about what that could look like at the end of the day. But like I say, I was thinking champion. I was thinking this role is pretty powerful, pretty high level. It's one where the person may bring in prospective partners to council, to admin, ready to start talking about collaboration and what that would look like in real life. Like I say, I haven't set the table, but I have had these conversations with with some people in positions to move land or move resources or invest monies. And it's to wonder who that responsibility now would rest with to see it through. I'm not sure I see it through the work of the liaison officer, but I guess that would depend on the job description. I don't want to ramble on too much, but in fact, I just want to go back to what I said at the start, and got some great feedback from Habitat and other groups and from our own residents, such as Ms. Bradley, that, you know, it'll be in looking at these 8 recommendations as compared to the 7 that we made in our own report to council as a committee, it's maybe to be mindful and careful about trying to pick some areas at first that we can work on, to keep the whole thing simple and achievable, as opposed to trying to work on all 8 of those recommendations simultaneously as to what kind of time and effort and energy might require to do that. So more free thinking here, but it was a strategic discussion. Then I would certainly, maybe to end, I would certainly enjoy to be called upon to have some further discussion, debate, arm wrestling matches, whatever you want to call them, with the admin group. There's still a lot of stuff that, was not able to share over the last few years. We never did have any sit-down formal meetings together between our committee and admin. It was something that was hoped for. Events conspired maybe against that being possible, but I'm still making myself available. I expect Councillor Deakin would too, just because we're so passionate about this subject and have been for a couple of years now, that I also leave that invitation out to staff. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Merci beaucoup, Conseiller Lalonde. Any other comments from members of council on this? Monsieur Bourgon, Monsieur Godin, you presented us with a plan here, with resources attached and kind of timing and so on. And so I guess council kind of reiterated a few points, and I'm not sure if that's clear enough. Is there any more requirements to guide discussion? So it's not simply about following this plan. It sounds like it has to be tweaked a little bit, and we need to kind of maybe dig a little bit deeper by the sounds of it. And so, Monsieur Bourgon, Monsieur Godin.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Donc, on a quand même entendu certains thèmes ce soir. Donc, the discussion will be beneficial in that sense, to focus our energy. And I would agree with Councillor Lalonde, like to pick a few items. And it's similar to any of our other master plans or any plan that comes to council. There's a full list of recommendations, and we tackle them one by one. So we appreciate the feedback tonight. It's going to help us to guide the next step, or which recommendation that we'll be working on first.
Merci. Any final comments on this? Seeing, hearing none. Okay, thank you very much. Merci beaucoup pour la préparation du rapport, Monsieur Bourgon. Okay, item 22, closed session pursuant to sections 239(2), 3, and 3.1 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, Chapter 25. Motion to move into closed meeting at the hour of 8:01 p.m. to address matters pertaining to sections 239 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, Chapter 25, to consider matters relating to 1, update on roles and responsibilities report CS 2024-11, and 2, closed session minutes of the regular council meeting dated August 26, 2024. And this is moved by Councillor Lawrence, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. I'll call for the vote. All in favor, thank you. We are moving into closed session.
And Mr. Mayor, maybe we can add that the first item was section B and section D in the closed session exemption.
Section B and section D.
D,
Okay,
yes.
merci.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are now in closed session